And we are live. Good morning. Move that slightly. The setup seems different. Slightly different angle. There we go. Perfect. Good morning, good morning, good morning. A very warm welcome to everyone. As always, let me know if you can hear the audio okay and the video is okay. All seems okay on my end, so just let me know in the chat if everything's okay. You can hear me okay? We'll wait to see if a few more join on in, but as always, before we even need to get started, just a sense of bringing ourselves into that space of being. Often in the morning, we may have feelings of, did I sleep okay? Was it a good night's sleep? And what the rest of the day might hold. But just for our time now, just for our meditation, just for our contemplation today, just a sense of being. Bringing ourselves into the here and now. Great to have you here. Thank you. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, it's evening for one member. I'm aware of the time difference and the time zones. I have quite a lot of viewers that are in America, and so I am looking to put on another stream that may have a more suitable time for the American viewers. 2 a.m. in Canada. Wow. Well, thank you for taking a nighttime meditation. Must be very peaceful there, 2 a.m. Beautiful. So just bringing ourselves into that space of being, just beginning to get into a more present place, a more relaxed place. And just an opening of awareness to what is without worrying so much about anything that's on the mind at all. So a couple of things just before I start. Firstly, just to make sure that people are aware, I now have the channel membership option. I'll be uploading some exclusive guided meditations and exclusive videos that, because obviously it's a subscription, so I don't have any adverts playing on the members only meditations and videos, but I'll still be continuing to stream and upload to my regular channel as well. So the membership is by no means mandatory, for want of a better word. Yeah, I just like to make sure that people are aware of that option. And secondly, I'm aware that one of my videos this week did way better than I was expecting in terms of views. I know that shouldn't really matter, but obviously it was surprising to me. I was very overjoyed, very heartened by it, but also quite overwhelmed by it as well, because there's a massive influx of subscribers as well. So just acknowledging that, really. And it's just interesting. It's just very interesting. Obviously, I put these videos out there to try and, it's good to spread the message as much as possible, but when it actually happens and something kind of takes off a little bit more than you were expecting, it's really quite something. So just wanted to acknowledge all the new subscribers and say thank you for watching, thank you for joining, thank you for being a subscriber to this channel if you are a new subscriber and you found this meditation today. With no further ado, let's go into our meditation here. So, as always in these sessions, we begin with the formal guided meditation. This will take, I aim for about 20 minutes, but in practice, it has been going on a little bit longer. It's just not strict, essentially. It could be anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes for the formal, more focused aspect of the meditation. And then we will be moving into the question and answer section afterwards. And the question and answer section is a opportunity to ask any questions or to raise any queries or insights, anything that has come up for you either during the meditation today or during your general meditative practice or on your spiritual journey, your journey of healing. However your awakening, your evolution, your development is unfolding for you, the question and answer section is an opportunity to just share some experiences, ask any questions, or get any feedback or insights at all. And the focus of today's meditation is to really do it, to truly experience the pure, unmixed, unmanifest consciousness, to have a glimpse into the experience of abiding as present awareness, to move away from the claustrophobic mind chatter, to move away from the confines and the limitations of the thought stream, and instead to move into the more expansive and open space of awareness. This experience is important. As powerful as it can be to learn new techniques and to read spiritual books and even to watch spiritual videos, this can be very important. But what can happen is we can begin to get a little tied up and a little clogged up in the intellectual part of the understanding, which can be very useful, can be very powerful. It's good to use the mind in a different way to our habitual way of using the mind. However, there is a trap that can begin there, and more powerful than any learning, more powerful than any video, more powerful than any teaching, practice, or principle is the felt experience of awakening. Even a momentary glimpse into that awakening is so powerful, it is worth lifetimes of practice. It is worth lifetimes of learning. There are many people could have a PhD in spiritual matters, but have never actually tasted and glimpsed the true nature of being. And there are people who have never touched a single spiritual book or watched a single spiritual video or heard a spiritual talk and just spontaneously had an amazing awakening. And it's those who have had the awakening who will have the deeper, more felt understanding. So, getting ourselves into a space in which our position reflects our intention to remain awake and alert. But alert doesn't mean tense. Alert doesn't mean hyper tied up and focused on anything. Alert simply means open and sensitive to now. And just bring yourself into that sense of being in the present moment, right here, right now. And what the present moment contains isn't that important. Just an awareness of the experience of now. And relieve the mind of its burden of trying to analyze or interpret relieve the mind of the burden to try to name and label, to try and categorize everything. We're not going to be doing any of that for the next 20 minutes or so. Allow the mind to simply subside. And this can take a little while just as we begin to immerse in the present. But we know there's no rush. There's no hurry for this. We have all the time in the world to simply abide as being. The present isn't going anywhere. The now isn't going anywhere. Just aligning with what is. Just leaving behind the period of sleep that we just came out of and the rest of the day. Or if you are watching in the evening or at night, just leaving whatever happened during the day, just leave it aside. Whatever happened during the day, whatever your week has contained, it's just not important now. Simply allow yourself only what is. And understanding the mind doesn't have to be involved in anything at all in order for reality to continue to unfold. Plants will grow regardless of whether we measure them or not. Everything just is, regardless of whether we name, categorize, or label anything. The sun continues to sail across the sky, whether we put a time on it or not. Everything simply unfolds as it ordinarily does. And you don't have to be involved in any of this. This is also true of the body and the mind. Recognize your heart continues to beat. You will continue to breathe, just the breath rising and falling. Your bodily processes continue. And even your mind just continues, whether you're particularly interested or not. Now, closing eyes if they've not been closed already, and simply become aware of the sensations of breathing. Just an awareness. And there is no need to interpret the breath and say, I'm breathing shallow, or I'm breathing deeply, or my chest feels tight, or my stomach feels tight. Nothing like that. Just become aware of the sensations of the breath and fully feel these sensations. Allow the sensation of the breath to become the entirety of your experience. There is nothing else. The entire world is simply a concept in the mind, and the raw experience of life is now. And connecting fully, embodying the now through the sensations of the breath, allowing the sensation of the breath to become the entirety of your experience. Just a sense of being aware of the sensations of breathing. Recognizing you only ever experience life in the now. Even thoughts of the past, memories, they simply arise within the now. And anything that happens within the now is within reasonable control, can be handled, can be dealt with, can be processed, not a problem. And even the future simply exists in the mind as imagination, as prediction, as fantasy, apprehension, and worry. But this thing called the future never actually arrives. It's not a real thing. It's all just a concept in the mind. Being aware of the sensations of breathing fully as the entirety of your experience, and open this awareness out. Quite easy to do this actually, to the entire felt sense of the body. So, not just the breathing now, also all of the sensations within the body. And even if the areas of the body just feel kind of blank, or there's a numbness or a void there, just be aware of the void. Just be aware of the blank. Just be aware of the space. Just a noticing. And there's a sense of open compassion and an impartial curiosity. We're not trying to find anything out about the body, not trying to assess or analyze sensations or feelings. Simply an observation of what is already here. And now, how interesting it is to observe these sensations without any interpretation. No name, no label, no deciding if it's a good feeling or bad feeling. Just feel it as it is in the open, empty space of awareness. Very good. Simply remain in that space of awareness for a little while and just establishing, recognize the habit is so strong in the mind. Upon finding any sensation in the body, it's as though the mind laser focuses in on that area and starts assessing, labeling, analyzing. Just be aware that this happens and don't be frustrated. We are undoing years of habitual mind activity. So if this keeps happening, that's fine. This is the benefit of the meditation. This is the training of the awareness now. Recognizing the mind almost cannot help but assess sensation. Just notice that it's happened, and with a sense of neutral curiosity, simply see if it's possible to just rest all areas of the body. And it's simply not your job or responsibility to assess anything at all. Just stay out of it. Stay out of the whole thing and abide in this impartial awareness for a short while here. Very good. Now, applying that same relaxed, neutral curiosity to the content of the mind. Aware of thought, but not getting involved. Aware of the entire story of your life. It's there, but just a sense of neutral, impartial awareness of this story. It's just one story of many, and it keeps changing, so just leave it for now. And notice that the body, mind, and world continues, whether there is a story there or not. Just existing as being without the story for now. No story needed. Now, opening awareness to all of the emotions, the general background hum of feeling and emotion. That's there too. But now with a relaxed, open, empty awareness, just allowing this emotion to rise into the space of awareness. but the same neutral curiosity, but ultimately a sense of just allowing and observing. Very good. Now, you are here, abiding as this space of awareness, and recognize that it never becomes more complicated than this. There is no more knowledge needed now. There is no more learning. There is no more technique. Simply deepen the abidance within this space of open, empty awareness. And recognize deeply you are this awareness. You are the awareness of the body. You are the awareness of the breath. You are the awareness of these thoughts and feelings. You are the awareness of the outside and inside world. You are the awareness of your personal story. You are the awareness of the past and of the future. And you are the awareness of now. And just invite a deep contemplation into your being here. Being aware of something does not necessarily mean that you are the thing that you are aware of. In the same way that you can observe with your eyes a tree in the distance, this does not mean that you are the tree, but the observer of the tree. This is obvious. So, really do this now. Deep contemplation. Really deepen the awakening now. This is the chance. This is the opportunity. If not now, when? Observing the breath does not mean that you are the breath. Observing the sensations in the body does not mean that you are the body. Observing thoughts does not mean that you are the thoughts. Observing feelings does not mean that you are the feelings. And observing your personal story does not mean that you are your personal story. You are the observer of everything. remain a short while here as the observer. Only now, no implications, just now, abide as the observer. Now, remaining as the awareness, remaining as the observer, begin to simply drop away all of those things that we were aware of. The observer stays, the observation stays. But what we're aware of, we are going to simply release our attention from. Release attention from the breath. Release attention from the body. Release attention from the mind, thoughts and feelings. Release attention from the story, and instead abide only as the awareness with no interest in paying attention to anything at all. And deep in this contemplation now. Just leave everything. Not held in rigid concentration now. Just leave, leave, leave. Drop, drop, drop. Fall away, fall away, fall away. Observer only. No past, nothing ever happened. No future, nothing will ever happen. Just what is in the now. Remaining as the abidance, as the observation, contemplating Does the awareness itself ever feel worried, or does it observe worry? Does the awareness feel stress, or does it observe the feeling of stress? Does the observer suffer the ups and downs of the story, or does it observe the awareness of the experience of the ups and downs of the story? The awareness itself is always neutral. The awareness itself is always at peace. The awareness itself simply remains as the ever-present background of experience, and this is always available to you. For anything to arise within our experience, one must be aware of the experience. If one is not aware of an experience, it is not an experience. So all experience contains within it the background awareness of the experience. And the background awareness of the experience does not suffer from the highs or lows of the experience. It just observes. So observing the content of the mind, whatever it contains, is absolutely fine. But know deeply you are the awareness of mind. Abiding as this awareness unmixed, you are liberated from the body and mind. No longer constrained to the limitations of the body and mind. The body and mind is time bound. But not because the body and mind is an object within something called time, but the mind is creating time. The mind is constructing time. The mind is constructing and creating the story of your life. So, abiding as the awareness and withdrawing attention from mind, as the mind falls silent, time no longer exists. It's not as though time is a real thing that we're trying to ignore. It's the clear recognition the mind is creating time. And so, withdrawing attention from the mind, time vanishes. There was never any such thing, ever. Not 1 second ever passed. Not one. So too with the personal story. This can be challenging to let go of, and we can work through all of the implications and all of the difficulties that arise as a result. However, understanding that when abiding as awareness, it is not as though the story continues, but we choose to ignore it, but by withdrawing attention from mind, withdrawing attention and belief from the story vanishes. It never happened. So, what a relief. We will begin moving into the more informal aspect of today's session. However, what would be far more powerful and beneficial if you have found that space of unmixed, unmanifest presence of awareness, to simply abide in that space, just open, accepting, and allowing of all. Everything, 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 and nothing, nothing, nothing. All one. Simply abide in that space, and all questions will be resolved. Knowing that this space of observation and awareness is the universal consciousness that is spoken about in all the spiritual traditions. So, resting as that awareness, you are resting in the highest space possible, far up in the clouds, observing all, and all is well. That is why the Buddha smiles. If you have found that space of awareness, some contemplations just for consideration would be: is the conscious awareness a negative place? Was it a negative experience being there? Did it feel like anything you've ever experienced before? Or was this something else? Was this experience beyond experience, a transcending of experience? Gentle contemplations. We're not going to try and tie into mind too much. We're not trying to figure it out. Philosophy will clip an angel's wings, as the old saying goes. Don't gild the lily. Once the awareness is felt and experienced, that's it. The light is in. The power is in. It will just shine and shine and shine and burn away all shadows, all doubts, all confusion. Once the light is in, it's game over, or end game. We can begin to shift our posture. I'm aware that meditation went on for far longer than expected again. I should probably just start saying the guided meditation could go on indefinitely rather than try and put 20 minutes on it. But thank you for bearing with all the way through that long one. And just shifting our posture, reopening our eyes, and we'll begin to bring ourselves into the more informal aspect of the meditation today, which is our question and answer section, and also a chance to just share any insights or anything that has arisen for you today. Be aware that the personal story is going to just try and fall off the bookshelf and open itself right in front of you, and the mind is waiting outside the door and just wants to jump straight on in and just pull you back into that personal narrative. Now the space of awareness has been found. It's precious. Abide within it. Let it grow. You gotta recognize, no matter how deeply you meditate, the ego is in the parking lot doing push-ups. It's worth knowing. So, opening out here to any questions. And a few came in during. So let's see what we have here today. See what we're working with here. Firstly, the reoccurring character of the Sports Direct mug in the expanded universe over here, and the non-product placement shaker cup. Hi Corinne, can you do a short guided meditation video of around 10 minutes for the mornings? That would be great. Thanks. I love your way of guiding. Oh, I'm glad you love my way of guiding. That's fantastic. I've got some meditations on my channel that are 10 minutes you can find. If you have Spotify, I do have some guided meditations on Spotify. And actually one of the most popular ones on there, on my Spotify, is my 10-minute, interestingly enough, my 10-minute morning, specifically for morning guided meditations. It was one of the things that gave me a lot of confidence to put a bit more energy into the meditation side of my channel, because that one in particular, the 10-minute morning guided meditation, actually did incredibly well and had some good feedback. So I started doing this a bit more. And there's an app called Insight Timer. I'm not very active on Insight Timer for reasons I won't go into, but my account is still on there. And there's a 10-minute guided meditation on there as well. So maybe the Insight Timer and the Spotify would be a good space to find that 10-minute one. But I will be producing more guided meditations as I go as well. What's kind of difficult with the guided meditations on YouTube is this business with their ads. And I am acutely aware that that ads thing is a barrier, that a challenge I'm trying to overcome at the moment, which is partly why I started the channel memberships, because I can put videos up in the membership only space without any advert interruption at all. This isn't a plug. I'm just saying this is I've got to find a way to juggle this, to balance this. It would be wonderful to come to a space where I can just completely demonetize the whole thing. I'd love to be able to do that, but I gotta eat. So I will be producing more guided meditations, but in the meantime, there's a back catalogue of guided meditations on Spotify and on Insight Timer. Hope that's helpful. 1 a.m. in WA State, USA. Is that Washington State, USA? I'm always so blessed and grateful to have so many American listeners. It's just great to have that connection with different cultures and different countries. We have in England here, we're kind of enamored with America. We watch it all the time. I grew up watching Friends and watching Simpsons and watching all these American films and shows and stuff. And I've always wanted to go. And it's superb to have so many American viewers. And I can only apologize that at the moment, my live stream, I know it's Greenwich Mean Time +1. And this time now, 9 o'clock on a Sunday, is the only real viable time for me at the moment due to other commitments and things. So, but I would like to do a specific meditation that caters so that it would probably be like morning time in the USA. That's Washington State, USA. Great to have you here. Greetings from the south of France. South of France is lovely. Bonjour. That's the limit of my French. Oh, what we got here? King Dale Clark. Hi all, meditation is pointless. These comments crack me up. I would say I strongly disagree, but that's about as far as I can go on that. Hey, Corinne, when you have been doing so much healing work on yourself, how do you know when you are finished and found your true self? What a great question. What a great question. For me, and there's a lot of sources that would back this up when it comes to healing, because it's difficult to tell sometimes. If you're engaged in the process of healing from a damaged past, healing from negative experiences, maybe going through the therapeutic and counseling process, it can be chaotic. And oftentimes we feel worse before we feel better. And this is true when I was recovering from anxiety, depression, addiction, everything. Sometimes you feel worse before you feel better. But this feeling worse is a trick of perception. As your awareness increases, as you become aware of the things that need to be fixed, naturally this gives us a sense of, whoa, I've got my work cut out. And what's actually happening is, as your awareness is expanding, you're becoming aware of the difficult areas. I often use the analogy of, you don't know how messy your room is until you turn the light on. And sometimes it's like we're turning that dimmer switch up and up and up, brighter and brighter, and we're just becoming very aware of how much we need to heal. So that's one of the first things that can happen. But then as we begin to heal things, and it's such a difficult journey, because it's partly down to how much you can put into it, how much energy you put into your healing, how much energy you put into your recovery. But some of it is just going to have to be at its own time, at its own pace. This can't be rushed. It's going to just happen in its own time. Just trust the process. Don't interrupt the surgeon while the surgeon is operating is a very good analogy. Just let the process continue. But to be more specific in the answering here. So, where are we at? There we go. So, for me, I just become aware of certain areas where I used to feel terrible during certain times, during certain moments. And you suddenly become aware that you're handling things a lot better than you used to, or you no longer have such a powerful internal emotional reaction or response. So for me, as I was recovering from anxiety, I used to have this real problem with ringing places. I used to have a real issue with like trying to ring to pay a gas bill, trying to ring to pay the electric bill, trying to ring to sort out car insurance. My heart used to beat. I used to sweat. It used to take me all day to get the courage up to do something like that. Which I know it might, to some, that will seem ridiculous, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that can actually relate to that. It's strange. And then one day, this was whilst I was doing all my meditation and doing my my healing and going to cognitive behavioral therapy and doing all my exercise and stuff. I just noticed one day I had a bill to pay. It was an electric bill, and I just picked up the phone. I just did the whole process. This is before everything was online, so I was like, just did the process, paid, yet done, put the phone down, and carried on with the rest of my day. Like, just went about going making my dinner, and then I just suddenly went, hang on, that's weird. I just did all of that automatically, and I had no emotional reaction to it at all. It was just another thing to do, and it was done. And then there's moments where I'd be sat at work. So I used to work in a gym. I sat on reception. I did like gym and receptions, sat on reception. There's a queue out the door of people who want to get into their class and get into the gym. They want to pay and do their memberships and stuff. And ordinarily I'd be like heart beating, sweating, like, oh God, I've got to work on this queue. And then this was one of the earliest moments in my sort of like true presence of awakening, was all of that stress just suddenly just disappeared, just gone, because there was a deep insight that I only ever have to deal with the member that's right in front of me. I don't have to deal with the queue. I only have to deal with one member, and it's one member at a time. And so there are moments like that. So to answer your question, moments like that are an undeniable sign that something is changing. No, because nobody could come to me and say, no, Corin, that's not real healing. That's not proper awakening, Corin. You've got it all right. Like, as much as people try, nobody could say that to me, because I'm like, nah, you don't understand. You don't understand how I used to feel compared to how I feel now. Nobody can deny that or take that from you. You will just know. So there are many signs like that, and you will be stunned at the amount of things that you just thought, that's just life, isn't it? That's just the way things are. You know, we chat to someone and feel this incredible anger or worry or guilt or stuff, or somebody upsets you, and so naturally for the next like 3 days, you're going to be in like a tailspin in your mind. But then as you carry on with this healing process, you go, hang on a minute, no, wait, that doesn't happen. You start to go, oh wow, so this is what healthy people have been enjoying this whole time, just that sense of neutrality. And it's not a blankness, it's not like a numbness. You still have emotions and feelings, but they're now appropriate. It's now the just the normal, correct emotional response. And those emotions are there to guide us in life. If somebody upsets you and annoys you, that emotion, what it's there for is so that you can say, right, that person's a very negative person for me. Maybe they're not for other people, but for me, that person, I love you, but I don't like you. And I wouldn't say that out loud. That would be very strange, but that's the sense you get. And okay, so maybe I won't spend a great deal of time with that person. You just have natural, normal, rational emotions of just, that's how. So to answer your question, that's how you're aware that you are healing, in the process of healing. When it comes to how do you know you're finished? Now that's interestingly enough, that's a controversial one. And it's a little bit of I'm going to need a sip of coffee to answer this one, right? So it's actually a bit of a bugbear of mine that a lot of sources and a lot of resources that I actually resonate with quite a lot will say you're never fully healed. It can't be done. You can't fully heal. And that's always bugged me because I think you can. I think it is possible. And I don't think we do anyone any favors by saying you can't fully heal. The reason being, a lot of people have such low self-esteem and such low self-confidence that if you tell that person you can't fully heal, they'll just stop wherever they're at and say, well, this is it. This is as far as I can go then. And I don't think that's the right approach. Because it was the same for me when it came to all my other journeys as well, like my recovery from addiction, losing all the weight, having my fitness transformation. There's a lot of sources that say, oh, you'll never do it. You can't fully recover from addiction. You can't get to a healthy weight. Like for I don't know why, but it bugs me. So I think it is possible to fully heal, but it's also worth understanding why that sentiment is there and why these sources do sometimes say that. It's to take some of the pressure off, because we have a pressure on ourselves that we have to be fully healed now. Like because we want to be, rightly so, we want to be fully healed. So there can be a pressure associated with that, and that's not always helpful depending on your particular background and your particular story. All of that is related to the healing within the relative space, healing the body-mind, healing, fixing the story, the personal journey, trying to become the best version of yourself, personal development, mental health, physical health, which is beautiful. A journey that I would advise everybody to go on. Absolutely everybody. At a certain point in the spiritual path, we start to come into the full awakening. So the term that you ask here, you say, how do you know you found your true self? Well, there's two things that could refer to. Self-actualizing to the point where the body and mind is as good as it could possibly be, as this is as good as it's going to get. You've reached the pinnacle of your mental health, your physical health, your career, your relationships, all of that. You've reached that. Then we could say, right, I've found my true self. Or even, forget all of that. It's just the happiness. That's the true self. But if we're talking in terms of the spiritual terminology, the true self refers to the background level of conscious awareness that is always present. And there is a contradiction here, even in my message, because I do recommend trying to create the best mental and physical health and happiness for the body mind, but at the same time, the true self is actually the conscious awareness, the presence of being that's always there and has always been there. How do you know when you found you will just know it when you've healed enough? And if you're not there yet, you just keep going, keep going, keep going. When you've healed to the point where you're functional, you're happy enough, you feel fulfilled, you feel well, you want the best for yourself, you want the best for others, you just know it when you've rejoined the healthy world. You just know it. But in terms of how do you know when you've awakened, again, you'll just know it, but that's not a very satisfying answer. Ramana Maharshi, one of the most highly revered gurus of Advaita, he said the only sign of spiritual progress is the extent to which you no longer think. And that's that. Hi, Karen. Good meditation. Thank you very, very much, Eva. And I've been working with a lovely therapist who has been helping me on my healing journey. This week, he said it was coming to an end and asked how I wanted this to happen. It sent me in a spin. I'm in a space of feeling like there's can't say that word, looming, and been in tears ever since. Bless you. Okay. All right. Okay. Of course it's normal. Yeah, of course. That's been a source of comfort, a source of stability. It's been something that's helped you navigate and have more structure to your psychological healing, to your psychological journey. And so it's been there as a North Star, something that you know is always there. And it's been helping you and moving you along. And now you're faced with the prospect of that coming to an end. And because of the depth, because of the intensity of the emotions that you have suffered with, what you're worried that you're going to go back. You're worried that all that progress you've made, you're going to just go back, and this source of some kind of support has been removed. So naturally, it's going to feel normal. It's going to feel upsetting at this prospect. I'd be interested to know why it's coming to an end. If this therapist, he just feels like that's because, so this in therapy, they tend to do it in blocks. They tend to, you do like a course of like, you have that's one of the models anyway, is like an intense sort of, you might do it weekly for like 9-12 weeks or something like that, 8 to 12 weeks, and then you take a break, and you need that time to process. You need that time and space apart. The other thing is that a good therapist doesn't want you to become reliant on them. So that could be what's happening. A good counselor, a good therapist doesn't want too much of a relationship building up. That sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. So sometimes it's a good thing to have that break in that space. I would say have some confidence and courage that you can do this, you can go this. I don't know if you've ever watched Dumbo, but there's a beautifully powerful spiritual message in Dumbo as it relates to the magic feather. Now, the crows know that Dumbo can fly, but Dumbo doesn't know that Dumbo can fly, but they've seen it. So what one of the crows does is he plucks one of his feathers, just a totally normal feather. He convinces Dumbo that the feather is magic and this feather can make you fly. And because Dumbo then feels like, oh, this is a magic feather, has the confidence to go flying. And we have to look sometimes for these magic feathers in our life, because it can even be our meditation, our spiritual journey. We think that's the magic feather that's giving us the freedom, that's giving us the liberation. But it's about understanding that that liberation was in you the whole time. You already had the ability to fly, but sometimes things come along that give you the confidence to feel like you can fly and you're free. That's one analogy I really like. But just some courage and confidence. You've already overcome so much. You can overcome the next bit too. It will naturally be scary. But this too shall pass. A better morning with your meditation. By the way, I sometimes see message retracted. Just to let you know, I never delete any messages or comments or anything. So whenever something says message retracted, I don't know if YouTube is doing that automatically or if people are removing their own messages. I don't know, but I just wanted to say I'm not here like selecting which messages to come through, if that makes sense. I think it's just an automatic thing, sometimes due to keywords. Great, I'll have a listen to that. Thank you. I agree, ads are annoying during meditation. I know they are. I've tried to take them out of all the guided meditations I do, but they are still in the videos that I do. So anyway, that's a challenge I'm just going to have to overcome. I know in order to grow, I need to move, but this part is scaring me. Someone said it sounds like limerence. Could be. Don't overthink it too much. It's because you're don't, how best to put it? Sometimes it's a natural, normal reaction. You'd feel any change or difference is going to be upsetting anyway. Even changing jobs can be upsetting. Moving house can be upsetting. Friends moving on, moving away. If a friend moves to a different part of the country or something, it can be a sign of just that's your emotions functioning correctly. And the idea of such a powerful professional in your life and that coming to a close, that's going to feel very emotional. It's just another thing to work through, but you can do it. Bonjour, Corinne. Yes. We have good morning from Saudi Arabia. Good morning, Saudi Arabia. I've never been. I'd love to go. I have epiphany moments, and the last one I experienced, I saw through my identity. Suffering and time were just experiences that no longer exist. yet I cling to them as my identity. It was liberating and almost made therapy seem pointless, reinforcing these identities, highlighting there the inherent contradictions on the spiritual path. That's quite a complicated one. I've wondered that too. For my journey with therapy, I've had plenty of it from many different sources. I felt like it was a necessary part of the process of the journey. It pointed my mind towards things that I was unaware of. And by pointing my mind towards that, I could understand certain things that needed to change, certain relationships that needed to change, certain relationships that needed to go. And it gave me a deeper cognitive understanding of everything that had happened in this apparent world of the body-mind. However, I agree. Eventually, on the spiritual path, I came to the point of it's almost like chewing gum, it loses its flavor after a while. It's almost like with all of the therapeutic journey, it was all necessary, and I highly recommend it to a lot of people. But eventually I chewed all of the flavor out of that, and I was just chewing plastic, basically. And I realized that it's time to just disengage from that also. It was a part of the play that the universe needed to play as. I don't know why, but it was part of the journey that had to happen. In many ways, simply to reach a deeper spiritual understanding that ultimately, at the end of all of it, the story never fully resolves. It's a self-continuing story until you close the book. And so upon that total awakening, upon that full spiritual realization, those epiphanies that come through, you do recognize that actually continuing to analyze the story has run its course. It's not to say it wasn't useful. It's just that it's now run its course. Sometimes I find, particularly maybe earlier on in the meditation, I would find that total bliss, that total peace and serenity. And that made it all the more painful when I came back into ego identity. And it can make it very confusing on the therapeutic path. And to try and, I was trying to force the two together. But then at a certain point, you just come to realization they're not so at odds with each other as you might think. I personally, it's just me speaking now, but I think the therapeutic path, the journey of one-to-one with a professional therapist, is a spiritual journey in itself. It's just one form of it. And it's one of the forms of it that doesn't call itself a spiritual path. But for all intents and purposes, it's still making our way to the top of the mountain. Everyone goes to the top of the mountain via a different path. Some are lucky enough to have a ski lift straight to the top, and others, it's a much longer, slower journey. Maybe some steeper, maybe some more twisting and winding, maybe some straightforwards, but ultimately everything brings us to the top. Anything that stimulates introspection, anything that stimulates deeper understanding has to be a good thing. What is the relation between awareness and personal identities? How do we give up awareness so easily if we are not paying attention to it? Another good one. all of the apparent reality is an illusion that will pull you into personal identity. Not only do we seemingly have an inherent proclivity to and temperament towards developing personal identity just because of the way the world and ourselves appear, just because of the way that it appears, we have a natural inclination towards developing this personal identity. But we actually now have a culture that actively reinforces and encourages it. So because of this, throughout decades of our life, we are constantly reinforcing these personal identities, constantly. You can barely move. I mean, you go to work, they put the name tag on you, and you open up any of your social media, it's all personal identity. Your relationships with anyone, just walking down the street, it's everything reinforces that. And because we've been doing it for so long, the habit is very powerful in the mind. It's just where the mind wants to, like an old comfortable pair of shoes, that's the identity. The mind just naturally slips back into it because that's its usual pattern of behavior. It's worth understanding that ego and identity and even the mind itself is an activity of awareness. It's not a thing, it's not a noun. Think of mind as a verb rather than a noun. That's a very powerful, very simple, very powerful one. Come to recognize the mind is a verb. The ego is a verb, meaning a doing. It's an activity. It's not a thing. It's not a solid, tangible thing. As much as the world tries to make it a tangible thing, it's not. It's an activity. So awareness is overlooked, partly because awareness just isn't stimulating. Awareness is peaceful and serene and open. And when something arises, the mind naturally gravitates towards it. The two most powerful driving factors are for most of our activity, our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors is desire and fear. And our personal identities are built around, it's almost the skeleton of the personal identity is desire and fear. And the personal identity is the flesh that builds around that skeleton. And there's nothing more powerful and primal and basic than desire and fear. So that is how quickly we overlook awareness. So it's just a habit. You say there, how do we give up awareness so easily? Because of habit. But once that's seen, once you've seen that's what's happening, now you have a choice to instead abide as awareness. And for a time, yeah, there's this thing called personal identity that's there. That's fine. Just aware of that running in the background, like you'd watch a character on a movie screen. That's fine. There's the personal awareness, but I choose to personal identity, but I choose to abide as awareness instead. And in time, the balance shifts because the mind activity begins to enjoy and appreciate peace far more than anything in the external world. Once that peace has been felt, it's game over. It's end game for the mind, because the resolution of desire and fear gives a momentary glimpse of peace. And that's why the mind seeks the resolution in the external world. But once the mind has seen that it doesn't need to do all of that, it can actually just go directly to peace. then it's like, oh, well, it's pointless then. You wouldn't go to you wouldn't go traveling down deep into a deep dark gold mine for little scraps of gold, little molecules of gold, if you have an entire vault filled with gold in your home. It's not, you wouldn't go out to do all of that anymore. And so abiding as awareness provides the peace that the mind was initially seeking through the resolution of desire and fear. And it's the seeking of the resolution of desire and fear that creates the personal identity in the first place, which is why we hold on to it and cling so tightly to it. Once the illusion is seen clearly, we can let go of that and abide as awareness. Lots of comments today. It's lovely. Okie dokie. Feeling worse is a perception. Good one, my dear friend. Yes, well, I'd say feeling worse is the becoming aware of something that you previously were unaware of. But it's sometimes good to be aware of that. Sometimes it's necessary. Morning, Corbin. Corbin's a common misspelling of my name. I get Corbin, Kieran, Colin. I got Corona the other day, which was quite interesting. Corin, sorry, predictive text. Oh, I see, Jay. Predictive text, yeah, Corbin. That's all right. I answer to most things these days. Yeah, I don't mind. It's all an illusion anyway, right? It's all a label anyway. Someone wants to call me Colin. I'm like, sure, it's Colin then. Thanks for the meditation. When resting as awareness, what can I inquire to see through the I am? I feel most teachers/speakers stop there and call it enlightenment. Okay. So this is in the realm of how to come into the felt experience of the understanding. When resting as awareness, what can I inquire to see through the I am? I see. Okay. That's going to be slightly different for everyone. Personally, I believe that, not believe, but whatever, words are an imperfect tool, bear with me. So once abiding as the awareness, I just become aware, I become acutely aware of the ego structure. And so the things that helped me to kind of dismantle, because everyone's going to have different foundations to this ego structure. So the pointings at that point that helped me, that kind of pulled those the foundation of the ego structure away so that I could just simply abide in the shunyata, the void, the voidness of it all. I know void is a negative, so the peace is a better word. Just to abide purely as peace, undisturbed by any of the apparent illusory world, in order to remain in peace and feel it as peace, as bliss, as the joy of the recognition, the joy of the enlightenment. It was necessary to dismantle the sticking points. But those sticking points for me were there as a result of my personal journey, my conditioning. Conditioning is a better word. So due to the way I'd been raised, everything I've been taught, due to my conditioning, due to my schooling, because people across the world have got different structures for their schooling, different curriculums that were taught to you from a very young age. So obviously there's going to be parts there that will be probably slightly different to me because my personal identity and ego structure latched onto certain things. That's partly why I did the spiritual bleach series. Every topic in that is one of the foundations of the ego, the pointing that I needed to understand. And once I understood it, huge parts of that just fell away. Huge parts of the binds, the fetters that kept me attached to the world fell away. So certain things like even the illusion doesn't exist. That was a big one for me. Even the illusion isn't there. I was like, whoa. Because I was trying to create a spiritual ego, a spiritual identity that still relates to the illusion. And all I heard one time, even the illusion isn't there. And so I don't know how, but something fell away. Even the present moment isn't there. That was another big one. No future, no past. There's also no present, because the present implies future and past. The present moment is a moment in time. So understanding the mind creates the world. So when the mind subsides, it's not like we're ignoring the world. It's that it actually vanishes. I would say in that case there that you're describing, it's just there's a moment where it's just you need courage and confidence and just do it. Just really do it. Just that's it. No more thinking, no more analyzing, no more trying to figure it out, no more book learning. There's no certificate coming. It's not happening, okay? Just nothing. Even the illusion isn't there. Done. And sooner or later, whatever it is that is still attaching you to the illusory world will go. Sometimes dramatically, sometimes like ships in the night will just disappear and you won't even be aware of it. Let's see what we got here. We need a theocracy, unfortunately, based on reality and truth. Even the 1% are miserable. Rubbish on the TV. We either have God or don't have God. God is real, and that should be incorporated in our education system and government. Strong words. Strong words. That's getting more into the realm of socio-politico, economical, societal stuff. I don't like to go into that sort of stuff too much. I would say, don't worry about the rest of the world. You focus on yourself. Liberate and enlighten yourself. And if everybody did that, everything would go a lot smoother. I think it's a fair comment. That's it. That's all I can really say on that. It's a fair comment. I feel it is possible to fully heal, but it isn't about healing something that doesn't exist, but to know your original face before you were born. Yeah. That is the ultimate healing, ultimately. At the end of it all, you come back to where you started. At the end of it all, you've come full circle. And in some ways, I feel like because we have to do it, there's all of the inner child work and stuff, and the story has to just, everything within me had to be happy enough to close the book. Because I was trying to close the book for a long time, but it was like trying to keep itself open. Eventually, there was just a silent agreement that happened in my mind where the book was able to close, put away, and abide as though nothing had ever happened. And that's the true healing. So again, it was asked slightly earlier, how do you know if you've healed, or how do you know if you're healing? One of the things that was remarkable for me was to be able to sit calm, peaceful, without anxiety, without worry. And I suddenly felt like I did when I was a child again. Now, it's quite a loaded thing, but when I say feel like a child again, I felt all those positive things of being a child, the wonder, the joy, the infinite possibility of the world. One Zen master said, when I was a child, mountains were mountains and waters were waters. When I became an adult, mountains were no longer mountains and waters were no longer waters. When I became enlightened, mountains were mountains again and waters were waters again. And that's what it felt like. The simplicity came back, the shine came back to the world. And I believe when we say know your original face before you were born, that's what it feels like. Before you felt like you had to be involved in the world. The world takes on its shine, the evening sunlight on the leaves that glisten, the moonlight glittering on the water, the fresh air, the sound of a bird, even the sound of traffic, the smell of the doctor's office, the feeling of clothes on your skin, just the simplicity again. It's fine. It's just fine. Everything, it's just fine. It's good. It's cool. It's cool. That was a sign for me that I was healing and was getting close to the fully healed experience. And I could sit comfortably without feeling like, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, or ruminating, worrying, just being able to sit and abide. There's one comment in response to another one saying, I'm a spiritual counselor / therapist, and therapy naturally comes to a close point. Good therapists empower their clients / friends to find answers within themselves. Thank you. I can't put it any better than that. Thank you. Yes, Unity Angels. What a beautiful name. Unity Angels. Yes, that's right. It should be. I think that is a point I would make as well. Like a good therapist wouldn't just say, right, next week's the final session, see you later. That if that's what they've done, that there's an ethical issue there, because Unity Angels there is saying exactly right. It's an empowering. And if it was me, I'm not a counselor or a therapist, but naturally me, I would probably agree that end point with the client. I think that would be something that you'd have to reach an agreement on. And then as that time came up, I would probably encourage just another question. Are you sure we're okay to end there? That would be a more ethical way of doing it, rather than this is ending now, see you later. That's not so good. I mean, I'm a personal trainer by trade, and sometimes that's how it works in personal training, is that we've as we're reaching the goals, or maybe they were training for a marathon, or they wanted to look good for their wedding or something like that. Like, as we reach the end of that, there's an agreement of, are we going to carry on after, or is this where we end off? And sometimes people get nervous, like, but I won't be able to train on my own. It's like, well, if I've done my job right as a personal trainer, I'm trying to work my way out of the client's life. It sounds paradoxical, but a good personal trainer doesn't want to be personal training you forever. They want to do it for a short time, give you the power, give you the tools, give you the encouragement to do it on your own. It's quite expensive, but I pay for YouTube Premium, totally ad-free. Yes, again, thank you, Unity Angels. There's certainly an angel come into my chat today. Yes, you can get YouTube Premium, and then there's ads are a thing of the past. Morning. Apologies, had a few morning nightmares. I wonder, do we mean in the relative world or whilst asleep? It's all right. We can. Not a problem at all. Thank you. Let's have a look. It's about finding a therapist who is completely surrendered, clear channel for the divine. Only God heals. The therapist is just the vessel for healing. The therapist reflects true identity. Powerful words. Powerful words. The reason we long for connection with people is because when we connect with people, we are glimpsing the divine oneness of everything, the unity of all. When you feel connected with someone, that person is reminding you of the oneness, the unity, the wholeness of the universe. When connecting with someone, it's like the polar forces of the yin and the yang come together and the wholeness is felt. Perhaps there's something they validate in you that's never been validated before, and suddenly you feel that sense of belonging. And often we only feel that with certain people or activities or whatever. It's just that sense of connection. And yes, a good therapist will just ignite that in you. Recognizing that, again, we've spoken on true healing quite a bit, and this true healing is the recognition that you're always whole. You were always loved by the universe. You've always been in being. It's just we forget so quickly and easily. I foresee a greater change when work is automated. People will want truth over everything. Technology often facilitates the biggest changes in the way our culture and society operates. And I agree, when work is, if you think about when the Industrial Revolution sort of happened and we came out of the fields and out of the factories and into offices, we became a much more cognitive based world, much more mind identified world. We used to be a very physical world, then we became a very mind world. Now we've got this thing called AI beginning, and suddenly the mind isn't going to be as necessary as it used to be. So I would agree. When we can automate even the function of the human mind, which we used to think was impossible, right? We used to think that couldn't happen. But once that is being taken care of by something else, it's going to take a while because we're all going to be very nervous about that happening. We don't want to relinquish the control, but it is going to open up a deeper search of truth. It will. You're right. It's like the Industrial Revolution, then it'll be the cognitive revolution. We went from physical to very mind-based. Now, when the mind-based is will evaporate, we still have people in fields and in factories, and we'll still have people in offices and stuff. But as the vast majority, you think about the global consciousness that is no longer so identified with the mind, that is no longer revering the mind so much, naturally we'll then move into more spiritual understanding. It's only when the mind subsides that we can have a deeper look. But that's going to be an unfolding process over the next 20 years, I would say. He was the first one that I truly. We're back to the therapist. He was the first one that I truly opened to it fully. We worked on past trauma, inner child, and so on. I know I'm in a much better place. I've changed a lot. Yeah. I've done a lot of inner child work as well. And again, I think that was a very necessary part of the journey. And I'm glad I did it. We have to show love and compassion to all beings. But why do we so often neglect our primary responsibility, the primary one we should be caring for, which is that poor, frightened, wounded, afraid, damaged inner child? I would say there are far more people walking around with a damaged inner world that they never look at, they never even attempt to heal, they never even try to. And because they never looked at it, because they never acknowledged it, because they never recognized it, they go on to act in terrible ways, with being totally unconscious that their behavior is damaging and hurting more people. We have to look inwards, extend a little love, and re-explore something that was lost a long time ago, which was our true innocence. Yin and yang, that's right. The healing journey you share with your therapist is a comment responding to previous comment. The healing journey you share with your therapist is beautiful and sacred, something that will remain with you always. Now you are ready for the next part of your journey. Well done. Yes. I think the internet is a seed of sorts. I believe our technology is often a metaphor and an analogy for the human journey, for the spiritual development, particularly our communication technology. And if you think about how the communication technology affects the way we live, affects the way we think, there's a lot of, this has been explored a lot by a lot of academics. You look at your Neil Postmans and your Marshall McLuhans. The medium is the metaphor, they said. And back in the day, the problem was TV. Everyone was worried about the TV. Think about how we had like 4 channels. It was very narrowcast, and this is all you could watch. The internet, I came to see as almost an analogy and a metaphor for the expanding human consciousness. If you think the connection across the globe, the connection across Earth, the connection of information that's being shared across, it's a neural network. It's a neural network. Because we're so zoomed in, we're all in each an individual cell. This live stream right now is a neuron connected to the entire global neural network. It's the global consciousness. It's a metaphor for the global consciousness. And for all its faults, for all the problems that it's brought, I think it's a net positive. The clues in language are everywhere. A net positive. Yeah, I think overall it's a net positive because of if you think of the free flow, the information exchange, the resources that I've been able to access that 20 years ago I wouldn't have been able to access. And so I think it is a seed. I think you're right. And even if you zoom the picture out enough, even all of these conflicts that go on, the culture wars, the arguments, even the disagreements and everything across the whole thing, and all the problems and all the issues that it creates, it's a dialogue. There is a dialogue occurring here. Now, I think the most interesting thing will be as AI becomes more prominent and prevalent within that global network. Well, I mean, what does that mean? But it's almost as humanity's consciousness has expanded alongside the internet expanded, the connection. And the connection's only going to get faster and more ubiquitous across the planet. As the satellites are beaming it down, it's like it will expand. Anyway, that's getting into a slightly different subject, slightly different topic. I'm probably fully echo chambered into the spiritual stuff because obviously that's not only what I consume in terms of what I watch and read, but also because now it's what I speak about too. So obviously I'm going to see a very biased perspective of the world, but to me, it would seem like there is something of an expanded awareness, an expanded awakening. Even just chatting to people in the real world, um, I find that there is an expanding of a deeper awareness. I noticed it many years ago, actually, because I was like 29, 30, just starting work in a gym. And a lot of the people that work in a gym were a lot younger. The gym instructors were like 18, 19, 20. Even the lifeguards around about 16 years old. And in chatting to them, I recognize this younger generation is so much more emotionally aware than my generation was at that age. I just noticed they speak on with such a deeper level of emotional awareness. I was very heartened by it. I was very encouraged by it. And I've got to say, I think the internet has played a part in that. Mental health awareness, and then that will evolve into a spiritual awareness. I believe we need to make spirituality far more accessible to everyone, which it means sometimes demystifying things a little, removing some of the more. There's a lot of language in the spiritual circles that means certain people won't be able to access it because it sounds too esoteric, it sounds too arcane. And so I believe to make it accessible to more people, we need to ensure that there are teachers who speak in more technical terms, which there are, and growing in prominence. Don't know how I got onto that. Sorry. Okay. Beautiful. To be able to close the book of my life, yes. Thank you again, Unity Angels. Blelly. Thank you. I knew I was healing when I started smiling again. That is beautiful. There you go. What more proof can there be? For me as well, that's when I have undeniable proof of something. It is when it's when it's your felt experience that can't be denied. I had, there was certain times in the early days of like sobriety when I'd stopped drinking. It was like it can be confusing, and am I doing it right? But then when I had like a year sobriety, I was like, well, I must be doing something right then. And then when people are like, oh yeah, but you're doing it wrong, or this, that, and the other, it's like, but now I have this undeniable, I know I'm sober. So this can't be denied now. And so it's the same if I'm walking and I feel happy and free and able to function without the anxiety, without the depression. Nobody can tell me, oh, you're doing it wrong. You've not healed properly. You're not awakening properly. It's like, I ain't interested in that. I know I'm healing when I started smiling again. I love that. I phase my clients/friends towards the end of therapy by spacing out, swapping weekly to fortnightly. Yep, phasing out. So it's more gentle, a gradual transition out of that process into the real world. But I would also say, surely it would be a good idea for the therapist to say, we're coming to an end, we'll phase out, but the door is open. If you're really struggling, come back and we'll look at things again. That's what I would do. We can now list and identify all forms of human suffering. Yes. Forgot to mention, would be great if you can set up some Discord channels also to chat with others. I have set up a Discord channel. I think it's just me and you in there. This is the member that what could go wrong. Um, there's a link to the Discord channel. So you've joined my channel and chat membership, which is a membership option to join on the channel. And so you do have access to that one. There should be a link on the membership page to that. If not, I'll send it through to you. But yeah, I think it's just me and you in there at the moment. But yeah, I'm trying to expand it and grow it, and we'll find a way. We'll find a way. But my idea initially was to try and, if we get the people who want to discuss all of this further and have the discussion and discourse, if they wanted to join into the Discord channel, and it's yeah. That's a good plan. Unity Angels, and obviously something I need to remember as I work towards becoming a therapist. See, there you go. You'll understand the process by learning. As I've said it many times on the channel, the best way to learn is to teach. Yeah. Obviously, he sees me coming closer to my true path. The healed become the healers. Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly how it works. Everything you've been through, it's like you're processing something. Once you've processed it, it's like diamonds are formed from the pressure and the heat of the earth and carbon, and that's what produces the diamond. And sometimes it feels, that's one of the ways that I managed to frame a lot of my journey, was that why did I have to go through it all, and why was it so painful and stuff. It's like, well, if I process all of that, sometimes years of understanding, going through the turmoil, the chaos, the confusion in the mind, the strong emotions, sometimes years of that culminate in a single sentence that I'll say at some point on a video or in a meditation. Just one sentence just comes up and I go, oh yeah, all those years. And it just happened to be packaged in a certain way. And hopefully that can go and help someone else. As we're speaking to the internet then as well, once that's been processed and packaged, if we can then upload it to the global network of consciousness, then it was worth something, right? It's got to be worth something. Again, that becomes an undeniable felt experience. Undeniable. It may sound too esoteric, it may sound too in the spiritual realm, but it has to be said as well. When you process and work through your own dark past, your own negative experiences, your own traumas, and you heal, you have to look at it as though you're removing that darkness, you're neutralizing that darkness, and you take it out of the common stock of human consciousness. You are removing that pain from the whole. You might think we have this idea of, oh yeah, but it's just a small, tiny little thing. No, it's massive, massive. Because negativity, pain, and unresolved trauma generates more pain, generates more darkness, generates more trauma in others. People unhealed walking around, causing more pain in unconscious ways on others. And for some reason, a big chunk of that darkness arrived at your doorstep, but you decided not to just throw it on to the next person, not to just ignore it and let it continue to cause more darkness, but you've healed that. It arrived at your doorstep, and then it ends there. It ends now. At great personal cost, great personal sacrifice. You could have the strongest electrical current in the world, but all it takes is 1 centimeter of gap in the wire, and the strongest electrical current in the world stops there. So the power of healing is massive. which is why I often end videos by saying, thank you for doing this work. Thank you. I feel an enormous amount of gratitude to the people who stopped and said, hang on a minute, this ain't right. It ain't right the way I've been treated. It ain't right the way I keep getting treated. It ain't right the way I'm acting. It just, something's not right. And stopping and healing that goes such a long way to taking some of that darkness out of the common pot. And a healed being walking around on Earth does an enormous amount of lightening the world around them. Sometimes in such subtle ways, you wouldn't even notice it's happening. But we all know people like that, right? You're just comfortable around them. You feel better around them. You feel good people. We need more of them. The healed become healers. That's true. Very true. But heal yourself first, I would say. Heal yourself. That's the most important thing. Even if you never outwardly went into the path of healing others, just healing your own stuff fully is more than enough. And anything on top is a bonus. There will be beings out there, enlightened, who never spoke of it, never speak of it once, and just continue a normal, mundane life, but fully awakened and enlightened. And they will be doing more for this earth than 100 activists and people who are desperately trying to force the world to be better. Just the subtle shift in consciousness is what will save Earth. You see them sometimes. I'll tell the story. I sat on a bench the other day and I was all up in my mind. It does still happen sometimes. Oh, it took me ages to get my standing in line in Tesco. Why can't people work the self-service check? And I was sat on this bench and I looked around and there was an older lady sat a little way away, and there was a split second where we made eye contact, and she had a Buddha smile, the real thing, and there was just a glittering in her eye. Just a split second, we met gaze, and there was a recognition of shared being, and we both looked back. We didn't look at each other again, but I just felt fully silent. My mind fell silent. My whole being just felt completely silent. And I just recognized she's awakened, fully awakened. And you wouldn't know it looking at her. You would, in a crowd, it'd just be just another person. But I thought that's an angel walking around on planet Earth. It's just nobody would really know. And she'll be doing more for the planet than you could possibly imagine. King Dow Clark again. Meditation is a waste again. Strongly disagree. Sorry, bro. AI does scare me. If society does not develop spiritually, we will become lost without meaning, disconnected and isolated without a framework to cope and find real meaning. Potentially. But it comes down to the individual. It's about how we connect with and interface with the technology. technology is powerful and therefore has the power to become dangerous, but ultimately it does come down to how we interact with it. Personally, I think the intuition that will arise from it, because often we see in the technology, we see the mistakes or the flaws in our own way of perceiving things. And I think one of the most amazing things that social media actually did for us is our recognition that what people put on their profile and who they are in real life are two very different things. Very different things. And when we see it so clearly like that, it gives us a clue. Now, I believe it gave us a clue into the nature of ego identity, because when you see somebody's social media profile, what you're seeing is the version of them they would like to be, the version of them they want to present to the world. But you know that person and you can see their social media and go, you are nothing like what I'm seeing on here. Well, very rarely anyway. And that gives us a clue, because then you think, well, hang on though, because how do I know? Again, there's no judgment. I'm not trying to put myself above this. You go look through any of my social media and you see exactly the same thing. Anyone that knows me in real life will look through my Instagram and stuff and go, Corey, you're not fooling anyone, mate. And I know that, and everyone knows that, but that's what it is. So, so I'm not putting myself above anything here. But if we know that, we can see the inherent falseness of what I try to come across as to the world isn't necessarily the real me. But then everything I say in some way is kind of edited. I'm trying to speak in a way to come across in a certain way. I'm trying to look in a certain way to come across a certain way. But is that the real me? Or am I trying to come across as something I'm not? So I believe that's how the social media technology it's a mirror, the black mirror, right? The mirror that shows us back to ourselves. I can look through my own social media and go, I don't know who this guy is. Who's this guy? Well, it's got my name on it and there's loads of my images on there, but that's not me. So this mirror shines back to us. Now, I believe what'll happen with AI is that it's already at a point where it's almost indistinguishable. You could chat to an AI and think you're chatting to a person, but no matter how good it gets, something just doesn't satisfy. It doesn't feel right. And there's this worry of like, well, won't people start relationships with AI? And like, well, there'll be no more need for human interaction because AI is like so good, it can emulate the perfect friendship. But I believe that's going to be a mirror back to ourselves. You will just know when something is false and something is real, when something is artificial intelligence and something is genuine. I believe that's the mirror effect that will happen from that new technology. It will hopefully reignite the sense of value of being human. The other thing that's becoming quite apparently quite rapidly is that AI can't be inspired by itself. It can only act on the prompts of our creativity. It can only take what already is and form incredible things out of it. But I believe maybe we'll come to a very interesting recognition of where inspiration comes from. And interestingly enough, inspire, that spire part of it, to inspire, that spire part comes from the same etymological root, the same wording as spirit and as respiration. So breath, spirit. To inspire is to breathe in. Breath, spirit. When we feel inspired, the spirit has come into the mind. Now, I believe the spirit, I think that'll just be a very interesting discussion that will begin to arise is, where does inspiration come from? Because scientists have never been able to figure that one out. We know how the cognition works, we know how the brain neurons and all this, but nothing really accounts for, but what is inspiration? Because inspiration is something new, something that doesn't relate to something that came before, but a completely new idea. Just waxing lyrical again. I don't know how I get onto these subjects. I must be feeling inspired. Welcome to the channel membership, Unity Angels. So great to have you on board. Am I going to do another plug? Sure. So channel memberships are available if you whack the old join button at the bottom there. Where is it? There somewhere. If you want to join for some of the unique members only videos that play without ads. Okay. Yep, I think it's just a voice chat. I can see, don't think there's any text ones. Okay, that sounds like a technical issue with the Discord chat. I'll have a look at that in a minute and see if I can. My apologies for that. That's a technical issue, technical error. It's my first time on Discord, so I'll change the settings as necessary, and yes, we'll get that chat room going. My apologies that it's been a while getting that one up and running, but it will be there today. Heal your wounds so you don't bleed on others. Yes. Says it perfectly. Says it perfectly. I won't expound on that. Here we go. King Dale Clark back in for another round. Let's go. Okay. There's nothing spiritual about anything. Meditation isn't spiritual, and no one has ever awakened. I think I'm getting a sense of where you're going with this. Meditation is pointless and all of that. We're all already awakened. Am I going down the right line here to the point we're trying to get across? There's nothing spiritual about anything. Meditation isn't spiritual, and no one has ever awakened. Ultimately, that is true. Nobody even exists. Nobody's even here. Nothing is actually happening. There's no such thing as meditation. Meditation is not an activity. We're going right to the top of Ajatavada. No birth, no change, no death. Just nothing. You're right in that respect, if that's the sentiment that you're expounding there. I can't believe matter is infinite. It's not. Matter is not infinite. But I'll ask you this: what is your experience of matter? Have you ever experienced matter, or have you only ever experienced the appearance of matter? And does experiencing an appearance necessarily prove that something is there? That's one for contemplation. Interesting. Inspire. I've done a little project on inspiration. It does appear to come from something external most of the time. Interesting, isn't it? To inspire. Where does it come from? Is there such a thing as a new idea? Or do we just take all the existing ideas and the brain creates something out of it? I mean, what is inspiration? Where does it come from? Where does imagination come from? How can we have dreams of experiences that we couldn't possibly have known? How can we dream of flying and really feel it? If anyone's ever felt it, I get those dreams. Actually flying and feel what it would feel like to be a human being in a human body flying, unaided by anything, just flying through the clouds. How? How is that possible when I've never had an experience that I can relate to that? Maybe the occasional bouncy castle and something similar, but I was having... Anyway. Okay. Blue Star Brigade. Thank you, Sibalisa Lisa. If you say there's nothing spiritual, you are probably, can't say that word, although I think I already have at some point. No offense. I'm not, yeah. I think that's a response to a previous one. From the individual to the collective, family, squad, community, nation, planet, universe. There you go. Yeah. Great analogy. Heal yourself so we don't bleed on others. Quote of the day. Great analogy. Thank you. Yeah, that's response to a previous comment. You can meditate all you want, thinking you will get somewhere. You won't. Okay. You see, I'm not 100% sure this is trolling. I think there's a deep spiritual point being made here. Everything is a deep spiritual point eventually. Everything is. So I think that's what's coming through there. You can meditate or you're thinking you will get somewhere. Ultimately, you won't. So there is, in the spiritual path, often the purpose of the spiritual discipline, the spiritual practice, is just to exhaust the seeker, to come to the point of realization that even this spiritual practice isn't bringing me to the full source of being, the ground of being. So there is something in there. There is juice in there. So it's maybe perhaps the most spiritual thing possible. Okay, no, you're right. It is trolling. All right. Okay. Life gives life, and D can tell us nothing about life. Yeah. The realization of matter, time, and the material world is one of the reasons Einstein became very spiritual towards the end. Sooner or later, materialism stops giving you answers. I can't elaborate on that any further. That's spot on. Inspire, always from within. Inspirational, from inside. Yes, spire. One of the things that I find useful as a spiritual discipline, as a spiritual practice, is looking for the clues. The clues are everywhere, and a lot of the clues are hidden in our language. And so sometimes the study of etymology can be very powerful about understanding how we've arrived at certain, because what language can be very powerful in our construction of meaning. So inspire is a powerful one. Another really important one that I've come across is understanding the word exist. Ex istare means to stand out from. So that's how we can say things like nothing exists, because what we're saying is it doesn't stand out from anything. So there is something there. There is an appearance there, but it doesn't exist. Ex istare, meaning to stand out, because everything is an appearance within consciousness, and nothing can exist, stand outside of consciousness. Etymological discovery is quite powerful when we're trying to develop an understanding. You can meditate or take. I know I should, don't feed the trolls is the old saying, isn't it? But some of this is fascinating. So you can meditate or take plant medicine in the Amazon. It doesn't change anything. Okay. Thank you for the time you have given me this morning. Although I'm still in a bit of a spin/anxiety over it, I'm beginning to see the positives in this natural ending shift in the relationship. So this is speaking on as therapy is drawing to an end, feeling the inevitable anxiety. So about the anxiety that's resulting, it's a sense of, one, recognizing that it's normal to feel that trepidation and anxiety. So don't worry about the worry. Don't panic about feeling worried. Don't panic about the negative emotions. It doesn't ultimately mean a great deal. It's just a normal, natural emotion that is inevitably going to arise as a result of what's coming up. Sit with the anxiety, which isn't to dwell in it or worry too much, but in meditation, bring yourself fully into the present moment, just here and now. Remove all of the story, but don't disregard the anxiety. It's obviously a very real, tangible emotion, but feel it just as it is. No story, no image, no label. It doesn't mean anything. It's not going to impact anything. It won't affect your ability to do anything. It's no sign of spiritual progress or lack of spiritual progress. It's just a feeling, a normal, natural feeling. If the feeling is here, the universe has already allowed it to be here. So you just follow suit and allow it also. And how does it feel in the moment? Probably tense, tight, doesn't feel pleasant. There's an intensity to the sensation, maybe shaking, maybe sweating, maybe tight stomach, but that's all. That's it. Sitting in that meditation in pure, loving, compassionate, open awareness, and it will dissolve. Neutralized. Once you start getting trolls, Corinne, you know you've made it. Congrats. Yeah. I mean, in general, because obviously there's been a few videos now, especially in the Spiritual Bleach series, that have gathered a lot more views than I was expecting and a lot more comments than I was expecting. And obviously that brings with it some challenges in itself. And so that's something I've been kind of learning how to process certain things, because one of those things, you have to be prepared for the inevitable negativity that comes through. You have to be prepared for that. You can't pretend it's not coming, because it's going to. And look, let's be honest, some of these thumbnails and titles are a little provocative. There's an intensity to it. It's going to invite a strong reaction. So some of that is like, well, okay, it's fine. I shot first, like, that's to be expected. For the most part, the comments and stuff that come back is far more positive than I could possibly imagine. I thought I'd get worse coming back. I thought that there'd be more negativity. So actually, generally, I'm very heartened. The next thing is, if you remove your ego out of things, one of the things I really needed to learn how to do was react to good criticism, proper criticism, properly, and not take it so personally. And that was very powerful for me in my personal development, because I realized in my previous unhealed self, everything felt like a really personal attack, even very fair criticism. So learning to be able to take fair criticism, it gives you a lot of power, gives you a lot of understanding about it shows you areas you might not be aware of yourself. And actually, somebody giving constructive feedback, it actually takes them a lot of work to do that. As a personal trainer, I have to give constructive feedback very carefully to not offend anyone. So if someone's now giving me constructive feedback, I had to learn to not take it personally as an attack and just read it as it is. And in doing that, a lot of comments that I previously would have gone, God, I can't say that, and I want to just like delete the comment or like block them or whatever. But sometimes it's like, no, just slow down and just read like what's actually being said here. And a lot of the times you go, okay, you know what? That's a fair point. However, in this case, no one is going anywhere. It doesn't matter what practices you do, they are futile. Who hurt you, bro? Is it futile? Are you sure? Nihilism. Nihilism is a seductive and dangerous path to go down. Nothing matters. Well, nothing matters, everything's pointless. That's a very psychologically lazy position to hide behind. Nihilism is a very easy way out, and at times, if life is difficult, it can feel quite comforting to simply reside in, oh, well, everything's just pointless and rubbish, and we're just matter that just knocks about, and everything's just random, and it's just random that we're all here. It can feel comforting in the early days, but if you let that poisonous, lazy state of mind sit and fester, eventually we end up here. Yeah. You will see it's not an ending, it's just a beginning. More healing will come if needed in a different form. You will experience more sacred encounters. Great to have you on board, Slady. All right. I can imagine you being a personal trainer, charging people a fortune for them to do some push-ups and sit-ups. How do you know my whole business model? That's literally, I have that up as just a reminder. That's the whole business strategy. That's actually my tagline. Get out of this silly fantasy and into the real world. Will do. Thank you for the pointer. It's impossible to say something is pointless from a point. Yep. Blessings and love flying to you. I've just realized we're coming up to 2.5 hours here. And I mean, it's interesting because I've still got energy and steam, but I think I'd better start moving, unless there's any more. I don't think any more interesting insights, queries, questions. So firstly, thank you for the new members to the channel from this today. Blessings. Thank you. I will have more members only videos uploaded this week, but I do have the guided meditations in the members only area up already. That'll be a good place to start. And the Discord, yeah, sorry, my apologies. I didn't realize that it was only on the voice chat and not the text. I'll get that shifted and changed for you as well. Thank you for bringing some entertainment to the proceedings, Kingdale Clark. Thank you so much, everyone. That has been fantastic, beautiful today. Thank you so much for everyone's participations, questions, queries, and insights. I hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day or evening or night, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining in and hope to see you next week, same time. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the way out. Blessings. Blessings to all. Take care, be well, and stay present.